So, first up is Tony Simon, founder and CEO at Cognivive. Did I say it right, Tony?
That's right, Cognivive, yes.
Okay, you can go ahead and share your screen now, and I will time you for 5 minutes, and I'll let you know if you go over.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity to do this. So I want to tell you about Cognivive, which is a proud UC Davis startup. And we are solving neurorehabilitation's most intractable problem with digital treatments for stroke recovery, which are perfectly suited to the COVID age because they require no hands-on contact from a clinician. They're designed to be used at home whenever the patient wishes, and they're fully personalized to that patient every time they use them. We're different from our competitors in the space because of the scientific basis we have used to develop what we think of as the active compound of our digital drug. The way we leverage virtual reality to make this possible, and the kind of AI that we use to analyze the patient as they're using it so we can personalize the treatment constantly. And also what sets us apart is a very different approach to game design so that the drug is actually swallowed and used, as it were. In other words, we have high intrinsic motivation and therefore adherence. We are FDA registered now, and our product is actually licensed from the University of California, where it all started. We're moving into trials. So what is the big problem that we're trying to solve? The problem is that for most stroke patients, if they're lucky enough to be discharged from the hospital, they're discharged quickly and with very little recovery. And if they're also lucky, they get access to a few times a week, some short, high-touch in-clinic outpatient rehab treatment sessions. But most of the treatment is then left for them to do at home in very unmotivating ways. And the clinicians say patients don't do their homework. So 2/3 of these patients really are not functionally recovered even 5 years later, despite the tens of billions of dollars that we spend on them. So I want to show you an example of this. This is a patient actually from a first-rank academic medical center. His job is to put one soup can on top of another, which is not a very motivating task in itself. You see that he has no grip in his right hand, so he really cannot do this task at all. And so his affected right arm and hand are really getting no real treatment at this moment. It's very dispiriting because he can't do it, and essentially the clinician has to do it for him. So this can't be done at home very effectively. Our insight is that all of the neuroplasticity that's there can be leveraged with very intensive and very extended treatment that's really calibrated and focuses on the components of those actions, not the piece that the whole thing that he wasn't able to do. So to calibrate that, you have to constantly know what the patient's capabilities are and adjust the treatment to that at that moment. And for it to be intensive and extended, the patient has to be very motivated and have access completely at all times to the treatment, which they currently don't. And so our other insight that we see is that we can really put this in almost any home because of the technology that's available. So we deliver the technology now in this small, lightweight headset, virtual reality headset you see in the bottom left. It's very easy for the patient to put on, press a single button, even with one arm. We constantly analyze their interaction with these treatment video games that they're enjoying, that they love. And the clinician can still monitor what they're doing in real time and adjust parameters with the companion app if they need to. And we're building out a clinician dashboard to be integrated with EHR for the fewest possible clicks for managing all of that. I'm going to show you what our treatment looks like. The gentleman in the top left is actually using a prototype of this with our previous hardware setup. The task is very much the same as the one we just saw the gentleman doing, picking up one object and putting it on another, but now it's in the context of a virtual reality Angry Birds kind of game. So he's reaching out to the right here to pick up this ball, and he's dropping it in this loader, and he just has to look where he wants the cannon to fire. Automatically does that, and he gets to play this really fun I love this game, by the way. It's a virtual reality game that can go on for a long time. There's lots of levels. The position of the loader you see in front of you and the ball that he's going to grab completely are dependent on his abilities. They move all the time. And you'll notice that the ball snaps into his hand here and snaps into the cannon as well. So that there's no need for the grasp he didn't have. So he can get a lot of time getting treatment for the components of that capability that he was trying to build but couldn't do inside of the clinic. So we really think this is a completely different way that this can be done at home whenever the patient wants. There are a lot of patients that need this treatment because there are 800,000 new cases of stroke every year. And because of that limiting in recovery, about 6 million chronically impaired patients exist at all time. So we believe that delivering our treatment as a durable medical equipment to the patient's home could save a payer $3,500 a year for every outpatient that reduces their use of outpatient services by as little as 30%. And if you're a payer that's insuring 2% of those lives of the chronic cases, you could save over $400 million a year with this kind of treatment. So as I mentioned, we recently registered our product with the FDA. We're building out the final components of this. We are in feasibility trials at the moment. We're raising money to move into the fuller trials. We believe we'll be bringing revenue by next year, either through sales and or prescriptions from doctors that will bring in the DME payments. And that's sort of as we look to go forward to get into this global situation. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Tony. That was great. I've really enjoyed watching your company over the years get some traction, and it's been real fun. So I wish you all the best in getting to the next stage.
Thank you.
So next up is Rich Foreman with Cortico. Rich, you can go ahead and share your screen, and then whenever you're ready, you can just launch your slides and start presenting. You are on mute though, so you may want to unmute yourself. There you go.
Hear me, Laura?
Yep, I can hear you. So whenever you're ready.
Okay, so good afternoon. My name is Rich Foreman. I'm the Chief Technology Officer here at Cordico, and I'm going to spend the next 5 minutes talking about the problem we're solving, our solution, and then our attraction. Oops. So when you call 911, you're basically making a call. You're basically calling 911 because you have a problem that you can't handle. But have you thought about the men and women that actually answer the call and what impact that has to them? So if you can imagine what it is to be a cop, you literally wear a bulletproof vest to work, and you're always at a heightened state of alert. And you literally see people on a daily basis on the worst state of their lives. From a fire standpoint, you know, the trauma they see is they're the first persons on an accident, and they will see horrific images of that involve children and elderly. And in addition, the physical stress is pretty excruciating as well. They may actually work up to, especially with wildfires, they may actually work up to 48 hours without sleep. They can do shifts for, they could actually work up to 16 days in a row without any relief. And in years past, they would see a fire like the Paradise Campfire maybe once in their career. Now, they're actually seeing these types of fires two or three times a season. So the human cost is pretty extraordinary. In terms of line of duty deaths, this graph here shows line of duty deaths includes getting shot, auto accidents, heart attacks, even cancer. What's even saddening is that the suicides are actually exceeds the line of duty deaths. So statistically, an officer or a firefighter are more apt to actually die by their own hands. In terms of business costs, $52 billion per year is spent on direct workers' comp, and a single workers' comp may actually cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. 40% of turnover is a result of stress, and in terms of, it'll actually cost about in excess of 125,000. Oops, excess of 125,000 if a cop or a firefighter actually resigns. So this is our solution. We've developed a custom wellness app for each agency, and the core of it is a 24/7 crisis support. They can find veterinary therapists. They can even meet with a therapist over telehealth. There's also a number of self-assessment tools, basic self-help tools in the app. And I actually won't really go over all the features by feature, but what I'm going to really do is maybe just discuss a few case studies. So in this one case study, we had an agency report that a detective was concerned that they actually had PTSD. They went to the app and actually went through a self-assessment test in the app, and it actually recommended that they seek professional help, which they did. They checked themselves in a medical facility that was listed in the app. In another case study, there was an officer in crisis, so this and literally was suicidal. So that officer actually went to the app, contacted a peer support team member. That peer support team member essentially calmed the person down and then actually, found the medical facility that they could check them in the app and then check them in that app. To date, we are actually aware of 4 suicides that were prevented with the help of our app. In terms of tractions, we've actually created over 100 customized apps, and we have probably about at least a dozen in process right now. And in terms of our ARR, we started from 0 2 years ago, and currently to date, we are at 3.1 million recurring revenue. We expect to reach 4 million by year's end. And right now, our focus has been the first responders, but we are actually currently working on a couple projects for several Fortune 500 companies. We have actually rolled out our product for design specific for hospitals and healthcare workers. And we've started work on some military projects. And this is my contact information. And what I will do is if there's any questions, I'll just respond to them via chat.
I'm here. I'm here. I was trying to turn the buzzer off before it went off, but you were like, you had a few seconds to go, Rich. So thank you. It's exciting to see what Cortico has been doing. So up next is Bruce Hammock with Icosis. Bruce, I'm never sure if I'm saying that right, so you'll have to correct that. So you can go ahead and share your screen. Let's see. And
I'm having trouble seeing how to share a screen.
Okay, so you should see at the bottom, there's a green icon that says share screen that has a little arrow pointing up.
It did on my last video and not on this one. Let's see.
So Jeff, could you just double check that Bruce is set up as a presenter or co-host?
He is.
Okay, there it is, and I can share my screen. Which starts conveniently with the last slide and not the first.
Well, we're at screen sharing now, so that's progress. So
I'm Bruce Hammock, and thank you for introducing me, Laura. I'm founder and CEO of Icosis, and our goal is to develop treatment for pain.
hey, Bruce.
Yes.
Can you put your slides in presentation mode?
Sure.
And then we'll start the timer over.
Okay.
Let's see.
So there's an icon down in the bottom of your window next to, there's a sliding bar to the right.
Yes. There it
is. There you go.
Okay.
Great. Everything looks great. So start when you're ready.
Thank you both. So we're working on development of a novel approach to treating pain. There are several different varieties of pain. Our first target is neuropathic or nerve injury pain. This was described recently as that chronic, unrelenting, unforgiving, and untreatable pain that comes from nerve damage. Our second target is inflammatory pain. This is the most common type of pain, and an example would be arthritic pain. We're also working on cancer chemotherapy caused and cancer pain from the National Institute of Health. I'll end with new data that we have on neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's. We're also funded to reduce the opiate crisis, to both prevent opiate use by employing better compounds to control pain, and also to reverse addiction. So the science behind this is the arachidonic acid cascade is where 75% by weight of the world's drugs work. You're probably familiar with some of them, like ibuprofen or aspirin. There are two predominantly inflammatory branches of the arachidonic cascade, shown here in red, but we discovered a third branch. It is anti-inflammatory, inflammation resolving, and it also reduces pain. These natural mediators are degraded by an enzyme in our bodies called the soluble oxide hydrolase, which is induced by inflammation and induced by pain. By inhibiting this with a small molecule, we stabilize the natural endogenous mediators, control pain, and resolve inflammation. So the SEH inhibitors, as we call them, will be more effective in reducing inflammatory pain by far than any of the common over-the-counter non-steroidal orcoxibs. But these compounds also synergize with them in that 2 and 2 equals 10 and make them work much better. And they block the gastrointestinal side effects of these drugs. The real target, though, is neuropathic pain. That's intractable pain. This is nerve injury from an accident, or in this case, from diabetes. So pain is, of course, a good thing. We just don't want too much of it. Here we show normal pain perception in green, enhanced pain perception in red. Our compound, shown on the far left, is able to reduce the enhanced pain perception back to normal pain perception, as are the two major compounds used in pain treatment, gabapentin and pregabalin. The difficulty is at these levels, both gabapentin and pregabalin cause problems with cognition, mobility, and coordination. The SEH inhibitors don't. In the middle, in yellow, is the world's largest selling drug, diclofenac. Like ibuprofen, it's non-steroidal. It actually will make neuropathic pain worse. So these compounds work really well on inflammatory pain and on neuropathic pain. Gabapentin and pregabalin were both $10 to $12 billion markets when they were released a few years ago, in spite of their limitations. So we've been doing a lot of work on rats and mice and pain models, but there's been a great deal of problem in the pharma industry translating from rodent models to people. Luckily at UC Davis, we're associated with the world's largest veterinary school. So we've been treating patients for years. They present with complex morbidities and mortalities, and they're real patients with real disease. These are cats, dogs, and horses. Here's a horse named Hula Halala, suffering from a disease called laminitis. It's a fatal disease, and just outside the picture is a humane killer. Luckily, the vet and I were able to inject the drug and save her, because Hula Halala was more valuable than both of us as the great-granddaughter of Seattle Slew, the '77 Triple Crown winner, who, like most Triple Crown winner, ultimately dies of laminitis. So within 2 or 3 hours of injecting the drug, Hula Halala was on her feet, and then she was eating, and then she was walking, and within a week, as a thoroughbred, she was running. 2 years later, she's teaching UC Davis kids how to ride. So we're obviously working to develop animal health drugs as well as human health drugs. So our funding is somewhat unique in that we've been funded almost exclusively by non-diluting funding, first from Small Business Administration grants from NIH. Then we were the first group in the nation to receive NINDS blueprint money to take a drug to the clinic directly. We're funded now by a HEAL grant to fight the opioid epidemic, and recently by a National Cancer Institute of Health grant. We've recently been funded at $5 million by a very interesting philanthropic VC called Open Philanthropy. As we have a number of pipelines, but one of the most interesting is chronic neurological disease. In every mouse model that we've tried on these diseases, our human drug works. And it works as well on human pluripotent stem cells, and it also fits with biomarkers in cadaveric human samples. We're working through the FDA to get these compounds into the clinic. We've just finished what's called a SAD trial, or a single ascending dose study, in normal volunteers with oral capsules. We ran about 5 doses, had linear pharmacokinetics, and it was an incredibly boring clinical trial. We saw no adverse effects over the 5 or 6 months of this trial. So where were we? Where are we? And where are we going? This is where we were last year as we made a successful IND application. Then this year we ran a successful phase 1A clinical trial. We're just starting our phase 1B clinical trial in humans. And at the end of the year, we either will raise money or I hope transfer this product to a large pharma company. I want to end by pointing out Icosis is quite a small company. We have roughly 150,000 fewer employees each year than does GSK, but we're all hardworking, nice people. And this is a picture of us taken at Food and Drug Administration a few days ago. And I'd love to take your questions offline. And thank you, Laura, for hosting me.
Thanks so much, Bruce. That was really interesting. So, and I love a happy ending. So I'm glad Hula Hala, or whatever her name was, is doing well.
He's doing well. Thank you.
All right. So next up is Kevin Kane with Gatekeeper Innovation. So Kevin, whenever you're ready. Let's see. I don't see Kevin. Let's see. Oh, now I do. Okay, you're on mute. Let me unmute you.
Yep. Can you guys hear me all right now?
Yep, we can hear you.
Well, I had this set up right. Let me do it again. There we go. So thanks, Laura. Thanks, Jeff, for inviting me. And it's great to be part of the group again. And it's an honor to be part of this presentation group as well. So again, my name is Kevin Kane, and I'm with Gatekeeper Innovation. Our market is all about solving the opioid crisis, and we're growing beyond that. But that's essentially is our foundation. Recent reports talks about how 30 states have now reported an increase in opioid fatalities as a result of the pandemic. We also have a study from the White House Council of Economic Advisors about the cost of the opioid crisis over the past 4 years, which is pretty sizable. In addition, just to get you the size of the market, across the United States, 5.8 billion prescription medications were dispensed last year. And the DEA estimates somewhere around 15% of that number is controlled substances. And that's pretty much where we focus. So while we got into this market to help address the opioid crisis, really what it's about is the controlled substances. And you think about that, you think about opioids, you think about antidepressants, ADHD medicine, those kinds of things. What we offer is something, a way in which you can secure them at home, but also during home delivery. So if you think about PillPack, you think about CVS, you think about, other Walgreens or Walmart, how do you ensure you're getting your medications delivered to you in a way that's safe and secure, and that you can also then save it and store it at home safe and secure. That's the market we're serving. But we're also, moving in the adherence space. My background's primarily technology, and so we identified a methodology that's going to allow us to get into adherence using NFC chips or near field communications. So this is our portfolio. To the left is our diversion portfolio, and diversion is referring to this industry term that talks about how do you prevent folks from diverting medications away from the intended patient, right? You're basically sneaking drugs. 45,000 people a year do this, by the way, every single day. And so we have the original bottle to the left, pardon me, and we have a box which is a polypropylene. It's FDA listed and certified for both food and pharmaceuticals. And our most newest cap is the one you see to the far right. And that fits over every single, most popular, should say, not every single, but the 3 most popular, which is like 98% of the market, are the screw caps or the one-clicks that's offered by Rite Aid or Walgreens or anyone else. What's important to note is that particular cap is our newest to market. In the past 3 months, we have secured a deal with Walgreens that we've shipped this week, actually, about 30,000 units to every single location of Walgreens in the United States. Moreover, we have a great partner with the local regional HMO here. You may all know Western Health Advantage. they become a fantastic partner of ours, where they did not only see value in having this cap to them provide for what they call Schedule 2. We satisfy Schedule 2 through Schedule 5. So Schedule 1 is illicit, so think about that as being illicit drugs. So Schedule 2 is the opioids, and it goes up to the ladder from there. And Western Health Advantage has agreed to dispense our cap with every single one of the controlled substances or Schedule 2 through Schedule 5 medications for the member community. And that's about 110,000 controlled substances that they dispense to their 135,000 members in Northern California. Now to the right, this is where we're going. This is our adherence strategy. So we have a mobile app that when you pick up your prescription or you have it delivered to your house, you just take the app out, you open the camera, you scan the barcode, it will upload that app with everything about that medication. What is it? What's the brand? What's the milligrams? And how often you take it? And we'll even default to, if it's supposed to be twice a day in the morning or afternoon, then we'll automatically schedule it to be an 8 or 5 p.m. Dosage. Moreover, for people who have visually impaired, we can integrate with Alexa, Google, Siri, so you actually have an audible announcement as well. And this is fully integrated with EMRs and EHRs, so think Epic and Cerner, so that when you're tracking your dosage, it's registering with the EMR and EHR. And a use case for that is you take your medication in the morning, you jump in the car to go to the office, God forbid you're in an accident, and you're in the ER, the doctor may change how they intend to administer care based upon the fact that they now know 45 minutes ago you've ingested certain kind of medicine. Lastly, every time you want to adjust or register that dosage, you just take your phone and you tap the cap. That's an NFC connection or near field communications. Think about that like your credit card. When you tap your credit card to pay something, it's the same kind of a thing. So here's our kind of an architecture, what it looks like. We anticipate by year 3 that's going to be a pretty impressive revenue opportunity for reporting, because the analytics and AI we can bring into this. But the idea being that we're tracking, if you're taking 1, 2, or 3 different medications, we can start tracking how those medications are interacting with you, what's your patient outcome, and then how does that fit into a much broader data set. So real briefly, the data model is kind of a word chart. So let me just draw your attention to what I've already covered, which is the 5.8 billion in prescription medications, or about 870 million annually. One model of that is if we would offer our chip at that for 99 cents, we grow to be a pretty big company pretty quickly. Now we do, as I mentioned, have a proof example. That's Western Health Advantage. And as I mentioned to them, that they're dispensing close to 110,000, and it's decent opportunity for us. So where we're going, again, it's just look at there's 900 health insurance companies in the United States. We already have contracts with United Healthcare Group, Kaiser, and Western Health Advantage. We're working with Magellan, Blue Cross Blue Shield, as well as Cigna. So phase 1 is going to be all about the diversion and the RX locking cap and helping to protect that medication. And then phase 2 is leverage that same footprint to then begin to introduce the adherence strategy as well. This is our market footprint so far. As I mentioned, we're in Walgreens and Rayleigh's and others. And so we have a pretty good stretch right now, and that's me. So hope that was in the right time frame, but thanks for the opportunity to present.
Great, thank you, Kevin. One of the things that excites me about Gatekeeper is it was started by a couple of students from Sac State about 10 years ago or so. So it's been exciting to see where the company is now. All right, so up next is John Ralston with PROTXX. So John, you can go ahead and share your screen. And we will, when you're ready, I will start the timer.
Can you hear me and see my screen?
We can hear you and see your screen. It doesn't look like, oh, there you go. Okay, so whenever you're ready, John.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is John Ralston, CEO and founder of PROTXX. I'll start with a quick thank you to Laura and the team at Startup Sacramento for the opportunity to present to you today. PROTXX as a company is focused on a key problem presented by the many different neurodegenerative conditions that can result from aging, disease, injury, or genetic disorders. And the problem is that patients with these conditions typically suffer from impairments to multiple physiological systems in their bodies. But current solutions for diagnosing these multiple impairments and then monitoring the effectiveness of treatment and rehabilitation all require scheduling patients for multiple complex tests that get carried out by multiple clinical specialists using very expensive equipment. So PROTXX solves this problem with our physiological vibration acceleration, or vibrata sensor. As shown in the photo here, it's a tiny non-invasive device worn behind the ear during a 1-minute test that can be carried out in the clinic or remotely. It's simple enough that patients can also test themselves. The device functions as a very sensitive seismometer for the human body, which allows it to detect tiny irregularities in the vibrational motion of the body that result from the interactions between all of these major physiological systems and their contributions to maintaining balance and postural stability, which allows us for the first time to independently identify and quantify and track impairments to all of these physiological systems based on their unique vibrational signatures. And this detection and analysis of vibrational signatures is actually already a very powerful tool used in industrial engineering for the design, remote monitoring, fault detection of very complex systems, everything from commercial aircraft to something very relevant to what we're doing, the design of robots that can mimic human motion. So our own innovations in wearable devices and machine learning simply extend these capabilities to precision healthcare by leveraging the vibrata vibrational signatures as digital biomarkers to identify and monitor human physiological impairments. Innovations that are now covered by a portfolio of 18 patent applications. Our first commercial product shown here is the PROTXX Clinic platform as a service solution that integrates the vibrata sensors, mobile app for configuring and running tests, and a powerful set of cloud-based data analytics, machine learning, and reporting services. The slide highlights the diagnostic power of the PROTXX Clinic solution, providing independent measures for neurological, sensory, musculoskeletal impairments with sensitivities, specificity, and accuracy, all above 90%, which is quite remarkable for such an easy-to-use, non-invasive device and a 1-minute test. Current clinical neurology, rehab medicine, and sports medicine applications of the PROTXX platform include stroke, concussions, elderly frailty, Parkinson's disease, multiple sclerosis, peripheral neuropathies, and neurosurgeries. These are medical conditions that together impact tens of millions of patients in the US, and each one on its own generates annual healthcare costs between $30 and $70 billion. Our first peer-reviewed clinical validation study was published a year ago, following which we launched the first commercial release of the PROTXX Clinic platform to paying customers. Today, we have over 20 paying customers and a number of data collection pilots up and running in the US and Canada, in the UK and Japan. And we're actually seeing an acceleration in our revenues due to the growing demand that COVID-19 has created for remote patient monitoring solutions. Quick overview of the competitive landscape. So as I indicated earlier, existing solutions to give you the same level of diagnostic detail would require multiple complex tests using very expensive clinical equipment. Competing sensor-based solutions include a variety of wearable devices and mobile apps that measure the user's activity or mobility or balance, but none of these solutions are able to detect and classify multiple impairments with the sensitivity of the PROTXX platform, while enabling continuous remote monitoring, integrating diagnostics and therapeutics, and doing all of this in a very easy to use, low-cost wearable device. We're currently closing out a $2 million seed financing round to complete several key milestones before moving on to a $7 to $10 million Series A round in 2021. And finally, a quick introduction to the PROTXX leadership team, a very accomplished group of IoT device and data platform engineers, clinical medicine practitioners and researchers, digital healthcare business professionals, all with very significant experience launching and growing and exiting a variety of innovative enterprises in healthcare and related technology applications. So with that, thank you all very much, and please feel free to reach out to me via phone or email. Contact details here if you would like to learn more.
Great, thank you, John. You were right on time. That was perfect. So,
Thank you.
yeah. So up next is Neil Ray with Raydiant Oximetry. Did I say that right, Neil?
Yes. Can you see my screen?
I can. So whenever you're ready, go ahead.
Okay, and I want to make sure are the slides moving?
Yes.
Okay, great. Hi, everyone. My name is Neil Ray. I'm a board certified pediatric anesthesiologist based in Sacramento, and I'm CEO and founder of Raydiant Oximetry. And our mission is to improve outcomes for mothers and babies during childbirth by developing a better fetal monitor. The reason why we need to develop a better fetal monitor is current fetal heart rate monitoring technology has an accuracy of a coin toss in predicting fetal distress. This is an antiquated technology that's been around for over 50 years and has a high rate of false positives and false negatives. False positives lead to the overuse of medically unnecessary C-sections, while false negatives lead to the failed identification of the baby in distress. If you look what's happened in the United States over the past 40 years, C-section rates have gone up 400% to where 1 in every 3 women will get a C-section delivery for the birth of her baby, and 50% of these are deemed medically unnecessary. At the same time, if you look at newborn birth injury, we haven't done a very good job of improving that situation. And to further compound matters, maternal mortality in the United States has been rising in the last 20 years. Today, it is more dangerous to give birth in the United States than any other developed country around the world. When you do a root cause analysis of this, one of the big drivers is the overuse of medically unnecessary C-sections and the complications associated with them. So at Raydiant Oximetry, we're developing a new type of fetal monitor, one that doesn't look at heart rate changes in the baby, but rather the oxygen saturation. Because we all know in healthcare that oxygen saturation is a much better detector of distress. Currently, we have 5 issued patents for our technology and another 12 provisional patents pending. We've validated our technology in pregnant sheep models. We do our work outside of Davis in Winters, California, and we've demonstrated that our technology to date has a sensitivity of 89% and a specificity of 81% in detecting fetal distress. The reason why this is compelling is that current fetal heart rate monitoring technology has a specificity around 30 to 40%. So we've shown that we could potentially double the specificity and reduce false positives by 50%. We've also obtained our first in-human data. We did some initial feasibility work in human patients at UC Davis, and now we're doing it at Tufts University in Boston. And then we presented our first in-human data as well as our animal data to the FDA, and we got breakthrough status from the FDA for expedited approval. The FDA recognizes that the problem we're solving solves a large unmet clinical need for a large patient population, and they've given us fast track to approval with an intended use that our technology will measure fetal oxygen saturation. We believe with improved identification of fetal distress, we can reduce newborn NICU admissions, reduce emergency C-section rates, and reduce maternal mortality that's associated with repeat C-sections. A big highlight this year was that CMS agreed to cover breakthrough medical devices, the valley of death for medical device companies reimbursement, and the fact that we have breakthrough status means that we're going to get automatic reimbursement for the first 4 years after FDA approval. So we're a young company, been around for 4 years. We closed the Series A earlier this year of $7.5 million. We also have about $2 million in grant funding from NIH and NSF. Our big goal this year is to complete a 60-patient pilot study showing that a baby with normal oxygen saturation is born healthy. With that data, we'll raise a $16 million Series B, do our final product development, validation, verification, a 600-patient pivotal study, and get FDA PMA approval. Now, because we are dealing with unborn babies and pregnant women, our regulatory pathway is the most stringent, but we see this as an opportunity rather than a barrier. And the M&A data supports this. PMA devices tend to get acquired pre-FDA approval, pre-revenue generation, and for a median price of $350 million, making the Raydiant Oximetry investment opportunity very favorable for venture returns. We have a passionate team, medical device industry veterans, experienced in women's healthcare and pulse oximetry, and that are dedicated to making childbirth safer for hundreds of millions of women around the globe. Thank you.
All right, that was great, Neil. Thank you. So perfect timing too. So up next is Terry Carlone with Vydiant. So Terry, you want to go ahead and share your screen? Oops, there's that timer. All right. So I don't see Terry.
Or just give me a second. I still got Neil as he's
Oh, okay.
spotlit for some reason. I need to remove him. And we need to get, just give me 1 second, spotlight Terry here. There we go. Okay.
Terry, you need to unmute.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. So whenever you're ready,
great.
go ahead and
I
get
am.
started.
Actually, it's Vidiant.
Vidiant, thank you.
Looking into the future, but my name is Terry Carlone. I'm the CEO of Vidiant, which is a Folsom-based digital health company. We all want to live a healthy life. How do we do that? It's not really always an easy question. More than 90% of us say that we want to have some participation in managing our own health conditions. But there are 10 millions of patents and medical journals and scientific reviews out there, way too many for us to read and understand, even if we're doctors. We might seek help through some of the many books that are written, or the 300,000 apps that are on the market right now that offer to summarize the science and provide some advice. But even the legitimate advice is usually based on one or two single factors, like a diet or a genetic test. We know that biological systems are affected by a combination of many factors: physical, mental, social, environmental. Any medical advice that ignores the relationships of all of those different factors is by definition incomplete. Unfortunately, there's never been one single tool to address all of that biological and social complexity until now. We built it, we call it Onehealth. Onehealth is a knowledge base and predictive platform based on artificial intelligence, deep learning technology, specialized algorithms, and deductive ranking system. It analyzes huge sets of until now unconnected data encompassing virtually all factors known to affect the onset and treatment of diseases, and then prioritizes and predicts directional relationships among those multiple factors. As you can tell, the data are very complex, and so we've created visualization tools that are interactive that can help researchers and doctors understand and navigate this data ocean. We completed Onehealth last year. This year we began offering licenses to pharma and food companies as a method of validating the value of what we've developed. Pharma companies estimate that the right digital technology can help them save 25% of the cost of developing a drug, more than a $500 million per drug savings. And the FDA estimates that picking the right subpopulation for clinical trials can save pharma more than $100 million per clinical trial. The response we've gotten from pharma and food companies has been really cool. We've already entered into a number of licenses with big top 10 pharma food companies, and they are paying us 6 figures for each single view into our platform. And so there's a lot of potential there to grow that. This year, we also built a mobile app that's going to help us grow and build a community of individual users. When combined with the individual's personal data, which we will collect passively through their use, Onehealth becomes a reliable science-based tool to predict outcomes with state of medical knowledge certainty and give recommendations on the foods, physical activities, social engagement that users can use to improve their health. Our machine learning then reuses that data sets to train the relation extraction algorithms, constantly improving the performance in terms of accuracy and recall. And that way, our recommendations can be personalized to each individual's unique circumstances and continuously updated life data. We're currently in alpha, we're in initial focus groups with our app. We're going to launch the app commercially in 2021. Our intent is that we will accelerate the community growth through employers. Employers will pay for the subscriptions for their employees. Employees will get accurate recommendations on how they can improve their health. The employers will have lower health costs, less absenteeism, and increased employee loyalty. We've built a strong, experienced team of managers and scientists and engineers. We are now looking to build our sales team to help launch through our employers. And if anybody out there is interested in joining our team, please contact me. We're also looking for a local employer to be one of the hosts for our beta for our commercial app early next year. If anyone's interested, we would appreciate it very much. In return for your help, we'll provide your employees with free subscriptions to the Onehealth platform. That's it.
Great, thank you so much, Terry. Vidiant, did I get it right?
You got it.
Great. All right, so up next is Nick Jones with, is it Liven or Lyven? Oh, we got to unmute you, Nick. There we go.
Lyven, this time the Y is an I sound.
Okay. All right, whenever you're ready.
Sure. First of all, thank you. Thanks for having us today. My name is Nick Jones. I'm the Chief Experience Officer with Lyven. My co-founder is Sandeep Gupta, who's also logged in today. So again, we're Lyven, and what we're trying to do is to create a simple healthcare experience for everyone. Now, as far as the problem goes, and this won't be a shock to anybody, considering what we've been talking about today, myself and Sandeep, my other co-founder, spent many years implementing EMR systems. And during those years, we've observed and have confirmed through client interviews that today's EMR is quite unwieldy and only really perpetuates a siloed, separated system as a data model, which makes it difficult for healthcare providers to ever fully know their patient. And in the same way, this presents a problem to our patients, since they're also dealing with their data being spread across multiple EMRs. In order for them to understand their full data or their full health picture, they need to have accounts and maintain accounts with multiple portals, which can be quite cumbersome. So since patients are facing the same challenges as far as managing their data, the same challenges that the physicians are, we believe that the physician and patient experience should be put on equal footing. And then our third P word here is the big one, the pandemic. So during the pandemic, patients are having to get medical attention from places they've never been to, drive-through testing, drive-through clinics, urgent cares, or telemedicine visits with physicians they've never seen before and who probably don't have the correct access to all of the information that they would need to provide really good quality care. So our vision to solve this problem is a technology platform that delivers a simple health experience and does so through fast and easy access to complete health information. And as you can guess, that name of the platform is Lyven, which we're building right now. So how do we suppose to do this? Well, first of all, quality data. Many systems are merely grabbing patients' data from where they can find it from other systems, but they just kind of put it in the same bucket with existing data, which results in a messy chart. Duplicated, conflicting, and out-of-date data results in the EMR view of a single person, possibly very confusing and very awkward. So Lyven will take this discovered data, but then cleanse it, deduplicate it, find and handle redundancies. And then when you're armed with a clean data set that's been distilled, we can then produce aggregations and powerful insights using machine learning and artificial intelligence. And when that data set is clean, the sky is really the limit there. Also, at-home devices in the past few years have reached a level that's almost at the clinical level. So we have patients at home who are collecting mountains of data about blood pressure, heart rates, weight, glucose levels, even EKG readings and ECG readings that don't make their way into the health record. So therefore, Lyven would make that possible, providing a path for the at-home data to find a place in the official record, because a data set that includes not just measurements taken every 6 months at the clinic or so, but weekly, maybe even daily measurements will bring a resolution and clarity to the patient profile and data that we haven't seen before. On-demand availability. So this product, this Lyven platform, it isn't a buffet style multi-tiered suite of products that need to be integrated with one another. There's no death of 1,000 clicks, if we're familiar with that infamous article. More like actually 4,000 clicks if you look at the latest studies, is how often a provider is clicking their mouse in a day-to-day workday. And with Lyven, the user interface will never be a hindrance to the user and to the data that they're trying to get to. How else? Effortless use. We have 3 I's here. Intuitive. So based on user activity patterns, Lyven knows what the user, either physician or patient, wants to know. It's intelligent. It knows what they should know and surfaces those insights that could be alarming or be indicating a serious health problem is about to happen or is happening. And immediate. These data will be available in real time right when the user needs it. Portability. Dr. Arif highlighted this point that I'm going to go into. Lyven is not a site-by-site installation or siloed. The patient's chart, it's their chart. They own it, and it should follow them wherever they go. And that's what we're aiming to do with Lyven, because any other clinic that's on the platform will have the same exact view of that data. And since it belongs to the patient, they'll be able to provide temporary access to providers they encounter in their entire health journey, whether or not that provider is on the platform. And of course, this provides a seamless experience for both the patient and the physician. And of course, we've talked a lot about the pandemic. Even after COVID has subsided, the public mentality has forever been changed about how to receive healthcare. So offering different modalities or methods of treatment, we believe that's a must. In providing a superior experience in a single app instead of asking our users to use 3 or 4 apps is what will differentiate Lyven. So just to summarize, with Lyven, we're aiming to make a platform that transforms the provider-patient relationship into a true partnership to the end of better delivering and receiving care. And thank you so much for your time today. And here's my and Sandeep, my CEO's contact information. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Nick. And take a look at the chat. Somebody has a question there for you that you can answer in the chat. So up next is Mark Holman with Expanesthetics. How did I do?
You did just fine, Laura. Thank you.
Great. So you can go ahead and share your screen, and whenever you're ready, we'll get started.
Great. Screen is shared. Can you see that?
Yes.
Great. Good. Thanks so much. Well, it's great to be part of the Sacramento Innovation ecosystem. Laura, thanks for the invitation to be here today. We're a proud spinoff from the local major public research university down the street. And all of us at Expanesthetics are working on something big, like many of the things that come out of major public research universities. Our job is to improve the lives of billions of people around the world who currently don't have access to the kind of healthcare that we enjoy. here in the United States in Sacramento, as well as saving billions of healthcare dollars. We do that by developing new inhaled anesthetics that have fewer side effects. So our team is made up of a group of leaders, a board of directors with expertise running billion-dollar organizations. Some of them are local, but we have a national group of people in both our board, our advisory boards, which includes some of the leading experts in the world on anesthetic drug development and clinical practice. So when we look at the challenge, we see that today anesthesiologists in communities like ours, high resource healthcare markets, they get by well enough with the drugs that they use now, or so it seems. But Expanesthetics is not a solution in search of a problem, as some things are that come out of universities. The reality is, as we look at something that we all take for granted, access to surgery if we need it today, the reality is that the side effects of the current anesthetics that are just part and parcel of the delivery of those drugs, they impose billions of dollars, tens of billions of dollars in unnecessary costs. If we look at the US just as an example, we spend about $2 billion annually on general anesthetics, but we spend more than $60 billion to manage the side effects that are part of drug delivery. Those effects range from cardiovascular depression, respiratory depression, post-op nausea, to post-operative cognitive decline, many more. And even more driving, I think, for us as a company, the costs imposed by the side effects that we can pay comfortably in the United States are just too high for most of the world to bear. And so what we know is that 5 billion people around the world lack access to the basic surgical and anesthesia care that we take for granted every day. And our work is to design so that new anesthetics with fewer side effects could greatly accelerate the expansion of surgical access in these areas, driving both economic value and increasing the total addressable market for our drugs. And so developing new agents with fewer side effects, which is our goal, has never been possible before. But the technology that we've licensed allows us finally at long last to do that work. Our technology is based on a major scientific discovery funded by the NIH that allows us to use the physical property of something called molar water solubility to predict which receptors in a cell an anesthetic candidate is likely to modulate. And that allows us to develop agents with more finely tuned mechanisms of action, how they work, instead of the current drugs with the intent of causing those fewer side effects that drive the market. We've got promising results so far. For example, 2 agents we studied in dogs showed excellent cardiovascular stability compared to the drugs that are in use now. And that kind of clinical improvement is what we expect will drive massive demand for a new inhaled anesthetic. Our market research shows that most anesthesiologists would switch most of their cases to a new drug, just like what they usually use, except better cardiovascular performance, which is what we're seeking. Nearly half of them actually would switch almost all of their cases to a drug like that. It's not just, though, that we've gone and gotten customer opinions. Most of Expanesthetics shareholders, who've collectively invested over $7.5 million, are anesthesia clinicians, anesthesiologists, CRNAs. And our programs have also been empowered by about $1.5 million in various forms of non-dilutive government support locally and nationwide. Expanesthetics is working toward first-in-human data within 3 years, and at that time to conclude a merger and acquisition transaction with a commercial anesthetic company. And based on our existing conversations, we anticipate that will be one of the leaders in the space. This isn't an investment seminar, but I wanted to just note that we're in the process of this big race. And the reason why I wanted to note for the group today that we're assembling a syndicate towards $16 million is because the kind of innovation like Expanesthetics requires a tremendous amount of risk capital. So pools of funding, $1 or $2 million of conservative funding isn't really helpful to major projects spinning out of research universities. And so as we all think about that as a community to build more companies like Icosis and Expanesthetics and others, we're gonna have to figure out together how to increase the amount of risk capital available to entrepreneurs and technologies in our community. Thanks for the opportunity to let you know what we're doing.
Great, thank you so much, Mark. And thanks for joining us from, am I right, halfway around the world?
I am Not actually. I'm participating in an Australia conference today, but it actually is virtually. So I popped out to do this, and I'll be coming back.
Great. All right. So our final presenter is Dr. Larry Ozren with, and this one I can pronounce no problem, Informed Health Technologies. So Larry, whenever you're ready, go ahead and share your screen and you can get
Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Laura and Jeff, thank you for making this day happen and for inviting us. And thank you for all you do for the startup ecosystem. I'm Dr. Larry Ozren, CEO of Informed Health Technologies. Do you support your mom or dad managing a health issue? Literally millions of Americans do. It's not easy. It's a struggle to get information and an even bigger struggle to share that information. Trying to coordinate the information from multiple healthcare facilities is a nightmare, as others have described earlier today. Sorry. Healthcare has lost focus. For thousands of years, the science of medicine is focused on how to save lives, then how to lengthen them, and more recently, how to prevent disease and improve quality of life. Despite all of the changes in medical science over millennia, it has always focused on the patient. But over the last 50 years, the business model of medicine is increasingly separated from the patient. The shift in focus and in balance has made the health plan the center of healthcare, not the patient. Clinicians, as you heard earlier, now spend an increasing amount of time focused on things that have nothing to do with the patient, not on talking with patients or caregivers, not on reviewing information or sharing health data with peers. And within the last month, I was astounded to hear a physician say, "We can't ask our radiologists to review the prior CT. They don't have time." My immediate reaction was, that's their job. Once upon a time, not very long ago, that was the baseline standard of care. How else will anyone taking care of the patient know whether the patient is doing better, the same, or worse? Our mission at Informed Health Technologies is to empower patients and caregivers. We can't fix healthcare, but we can reduce some of the pain of it by making it much easier to get and share information and do it in a way that allows us to watch for small changes and let people who can take action know that there's a small problem before it becomes a big problem. We collect clinical data from healthcare providers, non-clinical data from in-home and on-body sensors, and we make it possible for the owner of the data to identify where they want to share this data. When we see a change in health status, we notify people who can take action. This right here is Steve. He has a blood pressure of 184/102. He has moderate heart disease, and he's at risk for a stroke. Because his blood pressure device has a Bluetooth component, it sends the data to his medical hub, and we identify through our rules engine that there's a problem. In this case, we can notify Steve's daughter, Deb, of his high blood pressure and suggest that Deb check on him. Maybe Steve's just anxious about something. Maybe he forgot to take his blood pressure medicine. But Deb can check several things with her dad before deciding whether to escalate this issue with her clinical team. If it's been going on for several days, his doctor may want to increase his blood pressure medicine or set up a telehealth visit. This is much safer than the first time anyone learning that Steve has a high blood pressure is when he actually has a stroke. Early intervention costs less and is more effective than treatment after the damage is done. Medical Hub is all of these things. And there are other products that do some of these things, but there's no other product that does all of these things. In the end, it depends on the customer and do they want our set of features, including the trust of owning their data, or do they want a different set? We are actively looking for people who are excited about the opportunity to be in control of their data, who want to be early adopters. We're also always looking for partners. I was very excited to see Nick's presentation on Lyven, and I think there may be some overlap. So Nick, if you're interested, I'm happy to talk. I have one more slide, but I'm going to leave this slide up for just a little bit longer so people can scan it. But unfortunately, I had left time for questions. So since we're not taking questions, please feel free to ask any questions in the chat. And with whatever time is left or whatever the program will allow, I'll be happy to answer what I can.
Okay, Larry, I've let people know that if they wanted to ask you a question, they could.
Okay.
I don't
So if
see
you have
one.
questions later, or you want to work with us, please visit our website or reach out to us at business@informedht.com.
Great. So does anyone have a question for Larry? You could go ahead and just indicate in the chat. Okay. I think it's
End of the day.
end of the day, yes. So, but feel free to reach out to Larry, and in fact, with any of the presenters, if you'd like to connect with them, you can email me or Jeff, and we can probably help you get introduced to them and ask them more questions. So thank you very much, Larry, for both your presentation now and for participating.
Thanks, Laura.
All right, so now it's time for a quick wrap up. First, a heartfelt thank you to all of our speakers, panelists, and presenting companies. They really pulled together a great program. Next, I'd like to thank, I'm supposed to be sharing my screen. Let's see, I guess I'm getting tired too. Let's see. This isn't going to be the right thing. Hold, please. You know, you're all going to drop off before I get to where I need to be. Just slapping himself in the head right now. Let's see. The problem is I have all these little Zoom